Back live in studios here in Viewpoint, Judith Busby and the old geezer. Our guests this morning are Bill Overton and Norm Newhouse. Judith, they represent an old, ad nauseam I say this, nothing happens till somebody makes it happen. These gentlemen and many who cooperate with them and help them at the food pantry make good things happen for some people who are in dire need. Bill, and Norman, the days again that you're open and the hours, and then also I'd like to ask the question. You know, in every December rolls around, and the Rotary has their one of their major fundraising programs wherein they sell grapefruit and oranges, and a lot of people buy those fruits and just have them sent directly to the pantry. Is that a big help to you?
Yes, it is.
We have several questions. There are hours.
We get probably 20 plus cases. And then we also from Harvest of Talents, and just to kind of show what other people do, yes. We get pallets of potatoes. In fact, we have 3 pallets. We got 3 pallets of potatoes this year, and that's a lot of 50-pound bags of potatoes to get rid of.
Oh my, yes.
Yeah.
And the hours and the days.
We're open Tuesday morning from 9 to 11, Thursday afternoon from 2 to 4, and we're open on the second Wednesday of each month for seniors and people with disabilities from 2 to 4 in the afternoon.
Why, if I may be so bold, is that a separate category?
It's a separate category because, you know, Norm talked about that people take a grocery cart and go around the room on a regular day. On that day, for seniors and people with disabilities, each customer that comes in is assigned a volunteer, and the volunteer takes the person around the room, helps them push the cart, helps them get items off the shelf after the person has selected them, and then right on out to the car, helps them unload and back in. So it's just a day that we really try to solicit more seniors and people with disabilities, and you know, we have people that have a lot of mobility problems, either with walkers or wheelchairs, and so this is an opportunity to really give extra help for those people.
Are you noticing?
They don't. Excuse me. No, typically, they don't have to stand. It doesn't take them as long. We do about 40, 45 families on the Wednesday, as opposed to 70 to 80 on any other given day. And so they don't have to, unless they show up early, which they do. You know, that's their fault. They have to stand in line. But if they show up at we open at 2. If they show up after 2 o'clock, say like 2:30, they just come right on through. It's those 10 people that show up early and stand outside for an hour. Unless it's severely cold, we have them come in. But we don't have normally. It's hard for us to operate if we have all the people come in.
Well, yeah, I expect. Yeah. Now, how about, you mentioned the seniors? Is there an increase in that population as well?
Well, I think we've attracted a few more, but as Norm said, seniors and people with disability, that will get perhaps 40 to 45. It's certainly not as many as there are out there, and we just haven't been able to attract them. We do have another aspect here that I think people should know, and Norm and I push it as much as we can, and that's a proxy. So that you could be a proxy for someone who's a neighbor or a relative, somebody that can't get into the pantry.
Physically can't make it.
If they can't make it, then you could do it for them. And it's a very simple process, nothing really more than just filling out just a name and address on a form, signing it, and then bringing it in, and then going around and getting the groceries. I think it's important that the proxy gets on the telephone and talks to the actual customer, so that they know exactly what they want when they go around the room. But sometimes that's really not always possible, and so they do the best job they can on picking out items that they think that the person would get. And I think we're getting more proxies now. I don't keep track of the numbers, so I really can't tell you, but I think there are more now than ever before, and that's an important way to serve a senior or a person with disabilities without having them come in.
Now, do you renew this proxy each time you come, or do you just sign on as a proxy for that person, and that's good for...
The form is filled out each month.
Each month.
Each month.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's not a big deal. They can essentially
No.
make copies of it once they've filled it out, you know.
648-5510 would be the number to call. If anybody has any comments or questions about this food pantry, a huge benefit to the community who many of whom have great need. Economics is certainly not age sensitive. Have you had any influx of younger folks, younger families?
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there's a lot of people that that have had jobs, and they may have just been entry level jobs, but they're at a point there's somebody else is trying to get that job now. So there's a lot of people in that instance, and of course there's again a lot of younger people that may be moving in with somebody else too, and that family has the means, but they don't. So they're eligible to come to the pantry.
Why don't you expand on that scenario just a little bit? Because I think that too is happening more and more. That somebody gets victimized by the downsizing, and all of a sudden they don't have any place to go. So what are you going to do if it's your kid and grandkids, but take them in?
True.
So now there could be an eligibility there, even though they are living with the grandparents. Can you talk about that? How that would be determined?
That eligibility would be say, okay, if the grandparents aren't eligible, but they are, then we would serve them. And we would take their word for that, because typically they would be, grandparents would be fixing their own meal, and they would be doing their own, because especially if there's children involved, grandparents may not get up that early, so that the mother or father would be feeding the youngsters earlier in the morning.
Before school, sure.
So we can serve that portion of the family
Yes.
that falls under the guidelines.
Now, for purposes of counting people, the government counts the people who've gotten Christmas jobs, seasonal employment, as employed, which I think is probably a problem, because come next month they'll be back on the rolls. So what if you are seasonally employed? And of course that can cover people who work construction and can't, I mean, you don't want to be a roofer in February.
True. We have a fair amount of that. We'll have some people that we have people that come in regularly, and we have people that work seasonal, and so then they will come in when they're laid off. We have people that don't want to come unless they absolutely have to.
Yeah, there's a pride factor.
So maybe once or twice a year they'll show up. It's just they just can't make things meet, and there's all kinds of scenarios.
Don't you run into that particularly in older people who remember the Depression, and they're not going to take, quote, charity, unquote?
That's the people that we feel that is out there that we're not reaching to, because they're too proud, or they just they think it should go to someplace else, and we would dearly love to serve them, except that we can't. We don't have the means to go out and
invite
search these people
Search them out,
to
right.
deliver to these people. But if somebody has a neighbor or has a friend or some kind of relative, we would be glad to sign them up, and they can do the proxy. That person can do the proxy for them.
If they can't bring themselves for one reason or another to come in.
Because I'm sure there's a few people out there that don't want to come, so they have somebody else coming in for them.
Now, in the event that people think that this would be a good idea at this Christmas time to make a donation to the food pantry, how would you go about that? We'll assume that people are going to write a check. So what do they do after they get it written?
They put it in an envelope and address it to Lincoln Logan Food Pantry, Post Office Box 773, Lincoln.
And failing that, I'm sure that if they would give it to their pastors in their respective churches with that request, that those gentlemen or ladies would forward that envelope to the food pantry.
Oh, certainly. And we have people every day we're open that'll stop by with, an envelope for us. So, I mean, they can just drop it by.
And bless their hearts, everyone.
That's right.
I might point out that Bill just said something important, Judith K., and that is that they're not just down there when they're distributing food. We have volunteers down there on a daily basis, putting something back into the community. The leaders, we have them right here in our studio, they get a lot of accolades, and they're not after accolades. They're after service for the community. But there are a lot of folks who have their shoulder to the wheel day in and day out. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely. They come from every small town in Logan County. In fact, we have a couple that comes, actually 3 people that come from Mason City to help us, and they're very active and very helpful to us and an essential part. So we have people from all over, volunteers from all over that come. We try not to get the accolades, although Norm here certainly got some accolades that I think well deserved.
Oh,
and,
yes.
The Citizen of the Year, Courier Citizen of the Year.
He's kind of nice, too, between you and me.
But the question I have is, what have you done for us recently, Norm?
We do have a lot of very faithful volunteers, and I'm going to put a plug in here. The second Wednesday in the afternoon, if anybody would like to volunteer, that's one of the times that we don't have people haven't got used to that. Our volunteers haven't got used to that. They know that there's a certain group that shows up every Tuesday morning. There's a certain group that shows up every Thursday afternoon, and then there's some that show up both of them. But the Wednesday thing, that one Wednesday a month, they just haven't got it programmed. And we've been doing this for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years now. Yeah. And so if anybody wants to volunteer, just come up there between 1 and 2 on the second Wednesday of the month, and we'll put you to work.
Do you usually, other than needing people for that Wednesday, do you usually have enough volunteers? Too many? Not enough? Where do you stand usually? Do you need to recruit?
On a rare occasion, we'll end up with we don't have enough, and then there's a rare occasion that we have too many.
More than you need.
But so you still, it's like, you got volunteers shoulder to shoulder, but you can't, it's not nice to send them home. But there's always typically, this time of year, there's always something to do. We've got a lot of cardboard that has to be taken care of, either boxes that need to be sorted out that we use, some of them need to be broken down. We've got food coming in all the time that needs to be sorted and put up. So typically we don't have a problem with too many volunteers, and we just deal with the fact that if it's a bad day and 5 volunteers show up, we're going to work. We've got to be open.
Yeah.
We've got to be open.
Well,
like Bill says, it be what it be. Huh? Yeah.
Well, we've appreciated very much your time this morning, gentlemen, and more importantly, the time that you donate to the community with your work at the Logan County Food Pantry. Tremendous asset to our community to have that available. And on behalf of those that benefit from your help and your services, we'll just offer you a community thank you for that. Once again, and in closing, I'd like to comment that this is the 70th anniversary of Pearl Harbor. And unfortunately, I noticed nothing in the local paper about it. Pantagraph had a little article about a gathering of people, one of whom was there in Pearl Harbor at the time as a little girl. It's natural that these things are going to be forgotten as the calendar pages fly off. It's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. I'd like to close with a quote about war by philosopher Harry Emerson Fosdick, and he said, "The tragedy of war is that it uses man's best to do man's worst." Thank you for Viewpoint.